Okay, so one of the more popular strategies is the rent to rent strategy. So we all know the rent to rent strategy, but just to run through it, really we're looking at a minimum cash flow of £500 per calendar month net. Much lower than that, you're going to find it more difficult to package and sell. Remember, with a rent to rent strategy, you never own the asset. The investor never owns the asset. So we are in effect babysitting another person's asset, another person's property. So, in light of this, what we need to ensure is that the monthly cash flow is enough to make it worth taking on that risk. So, the general rule across the rent to rent industry is a minimum net cash flow of £500. To be brutally honest, we tend to aim at a minimum of £700 to £800 net cash flow, just purely because we know that things such as voids, maintenance, refurbishment costs might be higher, general upkeep of the properties over the time, renewing of HMO licenses, it can really take a hit on your cash flow. So if you can get up to somewhere around £700 or £800 a month, all even better. But as a bare minimum, to package and sell to an investor, you're looking at £500 net cash flow. Now, with regards to contract length, generally we don't agree anything more than 5 years. We don't agree anything less than 3, personally, in the Goliath brand, but you can go as little as 12 months. Again, all of this factors into how much work is needed up front, how much of a refurbishment is going to be needed, any costs of getting the property up and running. If it's a lot upfront cost, you want to try and agree a longer term. If it's not and you're taking on a ready-made property ready to go, then 12-month contracts are fine with a view to extending if everything works according to plan. And don't forget the single let rent to rent strategy. And what I mean by that is you can take properties on that are single lets and then let them again as single lets. The key to all of this is negotiating as low a payment to the landlord as possible. So of course, whatever you negotiate down becomes positive cash flow for you. So on a single let, it's even more important. But of course, the benefit of a single let rent to rent is you have one tenancy, you have longer stays, so people tend to stay longer on a single let property, and they're less hassle on an ongoing basis. But the key really is to negotiate a payment as low as possible. And just always remember to negotiate using net rental income, not gross. And what I mean by that is the net rental income that a landlord receives. If a landlord is advertising their property for £500 a month, the reality is that that landlord is going to be achieving 30% less than that as a net figure. So on a £500 per month rental income, their net income is likely to be somewhere around £350 a month. That is our starting point for negotiations. So 350, if we can negotiate that a bit further down to 300, for example, the reason why we're offering less is because we're taking care of all the maintenance, we're taking care of all the management, we're taking care of any voids. They're guaranteed that payment 12 months a year for the duration of the term. Then we can negotiate that price lower than the net rental income. So it's one of the most popular startup investment strategies because you've got lower initial investment. So what that means is investors, rent-to-renters do not need a massive pot of cash in order to take properties on. But just remember, you need to make sure that the investors have got some sort of capital to allow for the time it might take to get the properties rented in the first place, any minor maintenance issues that might come up, and because all of these are going to have an effect on the investor taking that property on, and more importantly, the landlord who you have struck the deal with when you're packaging it up. So it's a really popular startup strategy, but what that also means is that you have a lot of inexperienced investors that are trying to take these on and then struggling, and then of course the landlord who you've built the rapport with as a sourcer will come back to you when things go wrong. Now, whether they've got a right to challenge you, that's not the point. The point is we're trying to build a reputable business and sourcing these good deals to the right people. So just be very wary. It is a startup investment strategy, but what we always say is ensure the investor has experience of multi-letting, because if they take on a property and they've never done it before, they will struggle. They will struggle at the beginning because it is a completely different ball game to single lets. So just make sure they've got experience of multi-letting. I know that especially if you're at the beginning and you're desperate to package and sell a deal, you'll be rushing to package it and sell it to anyone and everyone just as long as they pay you a fee. But trust me, longer term, if you're looking to build this up as a business, you want to make sure that they have experience so that nothing comes back to bite you in the future. It also helps you package and sell it by explaining to the landlord who you're packaging and selling to in order to cut out any issues at the point of handover. So it's perfect for existing rental properties. So properties that are currently on the market to rent, for example, that are empty and the landlords are struggling to keep their occupancy levels up. If you feel there's potential to run it more efficiently, improve it, whatever it is, you can sell that to that landlord. Explain that you'll take care of all of that on their behalf at your own expense, but you expect a certain amount per month that you'll guarantee them. Very straightforward, but really good for lead generation because, of course, we're going to be targeting existing rental properties. And just remember, tired landlords are the perfect target for rent-to-rent strategies. A guaranteed rent service for a tired landlord couldn't be any better a solution. So remember, tired landlords are great. It does work with other properties, but you've got potentially landlords that understand the rental system, they understand the pros and cons, and you're going to sell them a solution to all their headaches, and that's the guaranteed rental service. So that's Rent to Rent.